Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's been a while since I've had a guest on, so I'm really excited to bring you this guest today. Michael is, anyway, I'll let him tell you who he is. He's actually really, really interesting. He's written a couple of books about this, and this newest one, Intergalactic Match, sounds really, really interesting. He's a contactee, and his area of expertise is extraterrestrials. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation. And yes, if you're wondering and you're looking at me and going, what has she done to her hair? If you're new to me, I don't normally have purple hair. And if you've been watching me for a couple of years, you know this is unusual for me. I let my 19-year-old daughter dye my hair purple last week before I went to Sedona, just for the fun of it, and as a bonding experience between myself and my daughter. As you may know, if you've been watching this show for a couple of years, you know that my daughter and I had a little issue about a year ago, and she told me she was never going to speak to me again because she and I see the world very differently. As with a lot of young people, she's gotten sucked into the dark side, if you will. And so she's only seeing what mainstream media and TikTok is telling her to think. So we had very different ideas about what's happening in the world right now. She said she was never going to speak to me again. So the fact that she's now in my home and hanging out with me and doing my hair is really a wonderful blessing for me. So I'm sharing all of my blessing with all of you and my purple hair. It is a temporary color. It'll be gone in a couple of months, but right now I'm having fun with it. And if you are new to my channel, a little bit about me. I am Victoria. I am an angelic walk-in. I'm the embodiment of Victoria, Elohim of freedom, and I'm here on the planet to help free humanity from the fear-based reality and create a new earth that is based entirely in love. You can learn more about me at victoriareynolds.com. I've got 4 books over there. I've got a free book, Rise Up. And if you order that and the computer gives you a hard time, it's because I have a glitchy going on with my website, and I will email you the free book if it doesn't download easily for you. And I have my Transcendence Process class that is starting on Saturday. There's still a couple of spots open if you want to jump in and take advantage of that. And if you are having issues with prosperity, you might want to check out my 6D Money Tree program. It's all about how to grow money in the 6th dimension. Yes, the 6th dimension. And this program is all about what that is and how to make it work on your behalf. Now, before I forget, please remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe. And share this forward, because this is how we help to make the world a better place, by sharing with others what inspires us. And if you feel inspired, I do also gratefully receive love offerings, and you can see a link below for making a donation. Now let's bring in Michael, and he's going to tell us all about his experiences with the ETs and this new book he has written, which sounds, well, it's a different kind of love story. Let's bring him in. Hi, Michael. It's so great to meet you in person after all the emails we've sent back and forth.
Well, it's nice to connect with you too more directly. I actually saw you in Charlie Warden outline recently. That's where I really found out about you on a conscious level and felt a connection, and felt this was to be a great opportunity to, cosmically red pill everybody about intergalactic love. And what's that all about? A subject hasn't really been broached too much in the UFO or metaphysical field, about relationships intergalactically, connecting like a rainbow crystal bridge to Earth and other realms.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually had a download a couple of years ago about a movie that at some point I might make, that it is just that. It's an intergalactic, not the same as yours, but it was an individual who is working for the Dark Fleet and an individual who is working for their Guardians of Light, and they met and fell in love, kind of like a Romeo and Juliet, but between these two different galactic forces, which I think, it's still up here along with a lot of other ideas. But I love the idea that you have, and I think that we are going to start seeing some of these intergalactic matches that you're talking about. For myself, what I've been shown is that my twin flame is not on the planet yet.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked me, does that mean he's not born yet? And I said, no, he's up there, and he just hasn't come to the planet yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to start seeing more of these intergalactic matches. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, your background, and this this incredible book that you've written. I know you have 2 books, and this newest book is the one you're promoting. But tell us about you, who you are, how this came to be, some of your background, and the service you're providing the world.
Yeah, we have a few million years to tell you the whole story.
How
People often ask me what's been going
about
on.
in this human incarnation?
Right. When people I haven't talked for a while, and they'll connect with me again, and they see what's been going on, and I'll say, well, you have a few million years. I can load it all and share it all with you. Because that's what it's, there's so much happening, not only right now, but in recent years leading up. And on my journey and everyone else's journey of, the liberation of the planet. See, I came into this life without the cosmic amnesia veils over my mind. So my perception was quite different than a lot of fellow volunteers. And of those who have not been aware of it, I welcome people to go to Celeste, my beloved, my other half, and my website, intergalacticmatch.com, and take a look at this NASA star people characteristic list. It's quite interesting. There's over 30 characteristics. And when I first saw that list in the early 80s, Brad Steiger had actually compiled it. He had worked with some NASA engineers and scientists and compiled a list of characteristics, because when we come into human embodiment, when our soul, our spirit comes down and merges, because DNA, RNA manifests on the etheric before it comes into the physical. So we bring in this energy, and because I didn't have the veils over my mind and consciousness, I retained more of my soul essence. So it affected my DNA, RNA. When I saw that list, I saw I had practically every one of them on the list, which didn't really surprise me because of that conscious awareness I had retained. That's not usually allowed. And it also sometimes can, I was targeted severely by the dark side to take me out because they saw me as a major threat to their fear-based reality. And I have, even after they tried to off me many, many times, I was always coming from humor. I was using humor. They don't understand humor,
Right.
so it discombobulated them. It's really, and after they tried to off me a number of times, and back before the White Hats took over the NSA in recent years, I knew they were monitoring. So I would say things over the phone like, hey, I want to thank you. I really want to thank you for trying to off me, because it just reconfirms the importance of my mission. I can't tell you how important that confirmation is. And I was being humorous, but really truthful too. And they didn't know how to relate to it. I was a real thorn in their butt for all until this time. But anyway, but I remember choosing my Earth parents prior to coming in because of their metaphysical background. Now, of course, they still had I still had a lot of dysfunctional family stuff. When you watch movies, shows like Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best, and you're going, wait a minute, something wrong with this picture. How come, families like that, but that's not realistic. But nevertheless, because of their metaphysical background, and my father was a professional stage hypnotist, and found out that, when after I started at a very early age, starting to talk in my sleep and going into older states of consciousness, my father thought, hey, I can, because see, Edgar Cayce, the famous sleeping prophet, actually went to a hypnotist. That's how he learned to go into a somnambulistic trance state and induce that state. So my father thought, hey, I can train my son in the same way. So by 15, I was doing these, quote, professional trance sessions to help people. Back in those days, before it became more transformational, my sessions, they were more karmic kinds of sessions to help people understand about past lives and things and karmic certain situations. But I always knew I was supposed to be a channel for higher intergalactic cosmic information. In fact, after I started doing these sessions, but my first actual physical contact encounter when I was around 6 years of age happened in 1959. And I fell off a pier in Oceanside, California, or a little town near Vista where I grew up. Anyway, in that experience of falling off the pier, which was a very dramatic, life-threatening situation, very traumatic to fall off the pier into the ocean. Now, I can look back very detached now from it, but in the process of falling off the pier, the higher Elohim beings beamed me physically up into the Merkabah lightship. And to me, I'm back in my home environment. I mean, that's where I used to hang out with all these
Mhm.
people, part of our extended cosmic family. And it was interesting because later on, I connected with 4 other people who were witness to that experience. One, a lady who was actually also 6 years of age. She was there with her father, who was from Canadian military intelligence. And this was the summer of '59. And he had come down from Canada with her, and taking her along with him, and decided to go to Oceanside and walk along the pier. And they saw this little kid get up on the railing of the pier and fall off into the ocean.
Mm.
And then 2 other people who were on the ship, the same ship I was beamed up into. And this was on a 6-dimensional plane. They physically beamed me up. And I don't remember them because I wasn't looking in their direction. As I later realized, they were in the corridor, and the walls were all glowing white. It was like it was alive. The ship was like a living, breathing, conscious being, a Merkaba manifestation. Beings like that don't need ships to travel when they're hanging. They're hanging out, hanging with one another. They create a self-actualized manifestation of divine consciousness. So anyway, I'm in this other chamber, and the beings dressed in silver blue metallic suits standing around me. And again, they were very real beings. I was physically there, and the walls were glowing white, beautiful. It was like consciousness reality. But they remember me because I was looking in their direction, but they remember they were standing in the corridor looking in my direction and saw me standing amongst the beings dressed in blue metallic suits. And I can't say how long I was there, but anyway, they had done is they had taken away most of the trauma, not all of it, because I had to learn you don't get up on dangerous places and put your life in danger. But they took away most of it because had they not, these kind of experiences can, if we, besides the fact of being taken onto a light ship, being traumatized in that way can be very debilitating for years later. And I've always been very fearless. I mean, I never let fear control me, but nevertheless, I had to understand what fear is. Because I wasn't in a fear of vibration when I came in. But after you're on Earth a while, that energy, if you don't do certain protocols and things, it'll keep that away. So basically, make a long story short, after they beamed me back, they had beamed me up at the moment of falling. And when they beamed me back the same instant. It was like a time-space warp. Because they beamed me back, and here I'm still falling, hit the ocean. And then I connected later with the guy who was on the pier and jumped off after me. That was kind of an emotional moment because I did an event in that area. And he came running up to me. Oh my God, I'm the guy. He didn't know I had this interaction with these beautiful human appearing Elohim beings who had intervened on my behalf. And so that was the first experience that verified the memories I had carried with me and set the stage for events in the future. And then the second experience happened in 1979, where the Dark Hats targeted me with a psychotronic beam. A psychotronic is a type of, classified. Psychotronic is tuning into a person's frequency, and they tune in me and rip the life force out of my body, basically rip my chakras apart. And then the higher forces beam me up, resurrected me. That was an interesting experience in itself, and connected with a being named Corton, who was a communication specialist within the Ashtar Command. And it was interesting because all the beings on that ship were dressed in blue, silver, and white metallic type outfits, but he was dressed in dressed in red with gold epaulets, which is actually an honor guard type of outfit. They were honoring me for what I had just gone through. I didn't realize that till later. And because my mission was kind of a cosmic espionage mission of light against the dark side, to discombobulate them with humor and joy. And I mean, really, because I just wasn't afraid, even though it was a horrendous thing to be hit with the psychotronic beam. And then I wake up on the ship and they're putting the life force back in my body. And I was there for a while, and I actually watched them take the blood out of my body and alter it vibrationally. They were actually energetically, vibrationally purifying and upgrading my DNA RNA in many ways. This was kind of almost a experimental thing. Because it was for the sake of my mission, I was going to be doing a lot of public exposure work. And in fact, after that experience, while I was on board, one of the things that happened is it changed the sessions I had done up until then were more karmic in nature. From then on, they became transformational, because one of the aspects about these 90-minute transformational sessions, when beings like Ashtar and different members of the Universal Guardian Alliance come through me, while they're speaking through me, this is very unique, they're downloading what is called these higher light encodements, which are custom designed to each light worker, each star person. And more than just when the person has a session, when they play the session back, that's what gets kind of interesting. That is when it activates their DNA RNA. In other words, it's one thing they don't do is they don't force help down our throats. They don't. But when we put ourselves in a position where we're calling upon divine creation and calling upon the higher forces, we give them mandated authority by our sovereignty, by our desire. We align our free will with divine will. And we ask them to be a guardian to help us help ourselves. That's always been. It's not they do it for us, but they also are there to back and support us as the ground crew, the boots on the ground.
Right.
And so from then on, as I started doing these three, and I've done thousands of these sessions, it's very fascinating to watch people, if they utilize it, that is, that they play back a lot of times, that you can sit back on your hundreds or nothing, not much is going to come out of it. But if you apply yourself with your sincere, pure heart's desire to help humanity, help the world, and help yourself to grow and expand, that is the real recipe to help these encodements activate and reach full capacity. But again, if you sit back, not going to come out of it. So, and then people often tell me, often when they play back the session later, they start sometimes hearing stuff popping up in the session they didn't initially hear, because they start accessing other levels through their special effort. Is in God, Goddess helps those that helps themselves. Mm-hmm. That is what activates the portal of awakening and all the gifts of the spirit being activated within each person. So I really am passionate about providing services to help the other light workers get, and also this starts to lift their cosmic amnesia veils, so they can start accessing the same source. Well, anyway, bringing it up to present with my beloved Celeste, who is sitting etherically on the bed here. She's not physically here, but to me, she's as real as if she's physically here. And sometimes I almost forget that she's not physically here. And I mean, I have a little mantra, blessed and blissed by Celeste. Because when she came into my life, and of course, I wasn't allowed to remember her, even though I came in without the veil, there were still other levels of awareness that I had to temporarily put aside. And I mean, if I had known about her, it would have distracted me, and I would have been, wanting to, but I had to wait till a certain point later in my life now to connect with her a few years ago. And that was a dramatic moment. I mean, in fact, I ended up in a homeless shelter. It was because the dark forces got really angry because I started having memory when I connect. She came in as a walk-in initially to get my attention, she said. And so she and I ended up compiling a book together in 2020, about 2 years after she and I really came into my life. And I spent almost all of 2020 compiling this over 700-page book, Intergalacticmatch.com. Unlike EarthsMatch.com or eHarmony or any of the other Earth dating sites, this is the intergalactic version in the sense by the fact of reading the book itself, because it's encoded energetically on all kinds of, in a visual level. When you read the book, the very act of reading it helps to activate certain energetics to connect you, start the process of connecting with your other half. Is really what it's designed to do. And also, when I connected with the very talented psychic visionary artist, Ari Ali, he did the front cover of the book, intergalacticmatch.com, and illustrated Celeste. If you go to Celeste, my website, you'll see an image of her, and it's really that accurate how she appeared to me. And when I was in a homeless shelter, one of the scenes, and this is a nonfiction book. I don't embellish, I tell it just like it is. And I'm laying there on the cold concrete floor. And I mean, the dark forces attacked me because when I connected with her and stayed with her for about a week, and the whole challenge was she was with another partner, and and it was like, of course, what would life be? Everything just went smoothly, without any drama. When we write our life script, we got to throw in a few moments of drama. I mean, come on, we're out right now as the White Hat Earth Alliance is bringing down the cabal. It's a movie, really. We don't get too attached to it. We see it's a movie. It's a pantomime, really, to red pill everybody, wake everybody up out of their, mind control and all the stuff that the cabal deep state did. And so we're moving out of the fear-based reality, but we still have to take a look at, acknowledge, before we move on, sometimes we have to go through a little bit of hell before we get to heaven, just because the earth has been entrapped. And so, but in the 1980s, when I was coming out openly, I did hundreds of public events. The cabal kept trying to off me. Now, I didn't find out till more recently that Celeste, using an old phrase from the Wild West, she was riding shotgun.
Oh.
Cabal on our ship, the Celestial Star. In fact, one day when I was power walking here in Sarasota, and she manifested by me, and she's always around me, but she said, told me telepathically, turn around, take a look at the upper side of the sky. And I turn around, look up at the sky, and there's this cloud bank with a sundog. I don't know if you know what a sundog is. It's a halo, beautiful rainbow halo effect among the clouds, and sticking out of it was the rim of the celestial star, which I photographed. And my higher self and her have a ship up there called the Celestial Star, and it's kind of named after Celeste, my beloved. And that was pretty profound, because then, let's see, it was in 2020. Early 2020. I'm trying to remember the exact time frame. So much has happened in the last few years, like millions of years all compressed into one. And I had a very powerful synchronicity. It was mind-blowing. Synchronicity, and it can be separate serendipity involved in it too, of course. And I had a powerful vision that afternoon. Now, I have a little habit. There's a store here, they're all over the United States, called Trader Joe's, where I like to call. I have a habit of calling in the morning. Just, I like to save a few pennies and nickels. And I always buy stuff because it's a little more cheaper to buy it, because I only eat organic food. I treat my body like a temple. And it's part of my protocol to be a clear channel, to do these transformational channel readings when Ashtar. And of course, when I do these readings for the women, and I always been channeling the goddess aspect. Now, Celeste, in the last 3 or 4 years, he's been coming through me directly. And that's why I say I'm blissed and blessed by Celeste. Through me at the end, after Ashtar comes through me, and he talks really, really fast, because he's trying to compress in 6.5 million years and 90 minutes, and that's almost impossible to do, but he's hitting the sun. So then he stands aside, and then Celeste will come through me, and I'm going to say it's total bliss out when my other half comes through me. Anyway, but this one morning I forgot to call Trader Joe's, it's like it's ingrained in me to call. And as I was power walking, I go, crap, I forgot to call. Well, that sudden revelation, right minutes before that, though, I had this powerful vision, as I said, and I saw myself and Celeste in our ship beaming up the children out of the dumps, the deep underground military bases, taking them off planet. And we were loading them and just leading them, taking them out of these horrendous places down there. And they were crying. It was the most horrendous. I mean, I'm sharing this because of a reason that, and I also had a powerful vision. During that vision, I saw Trump, his higher self, in the Galactic Council, when he stood up and vowed he was coming to Earth to bring down the entire deep state once and for all. It was a very powerful moment. And so, it was mind-blowing. I started crying and everything because of the intensity of this vision. And then that's when I remembered I forgot to call Trader Joe's. Crap. Because it turns out later I found out that Celeste made me forget. Because had I called, I don't even remember what I was calling about, I wouldn't have gone to Trader Joe's. But there's a reason, because I had gone there almost every other day to Trader Joe's, and only one other time in the entire time of, say, a year, had they ever played music through the intercom in the store. And so I decided to power walk down that day after the vision to Trader Joe's. And I came into the store, and a few times when I walked in, and I asked them if they have something. It made me take some half a minute to a minute to go back. Well, that day, that guy took 5 minutes to come back. And I'm standing there, and I noticed that they were playing music. This was the second time I'd ever heard him play music. And so he finally comes up and says, we don't have it. Well, I found out later that Celeste delayed him. There's a reason. When you have a synchronicity, there's that sense of timing involved in it, because it always happens within a few moments. Like if you're in an Earth vehicle and you're driving along, and you think about something really incredible, and you look over and notice the license plate. That's happened many times, or a sign, or maybe you overhear a sound, as in this case. So as I start to walk toward the door, and all of a sudden the song starts to play. Neil Young's After the Gold Rush, if you're familiar with some of the lyrics in that song. And the lyrics are, I saw the silvery spaceships shining in the yellow haze of the sun. The children were crying as the loading had begun. And I just stopped in my tracks. That's part of it. That's the only song out of millions of songs that has lyrics like that. In other words, Celeste set it up as a synchronicity for me to overhear that song within minutes after I'd had the vision to verify to me. Experiencing, I mean, you knew it was real, but it was interesting. You have that powerful, and so it was really profound. Knowing what I know about how much the Whiteout Alliance has been doing behind the scenes to finish up bringing down the cabal, so we can go into the golden age and to red pill everybody. And so anyway, when Celeste came into my life, it's been a profound journey with her, because I said, I mean, I relate to her just like she's on the physical level. That's how real she is. And so one day, it was in 2019, when she has an interesting way of letting me know about some. All of a sudden, came into my brain. Oh, we're going to do a book together. Oh, cool. I mean, we're actually communicating. Sometimes it's telepathic, but a lot of times it's soul communication, much deeper, where I just get these powerful, wonderful, sacred feelings from her. And it's just, I'm overwhelmed and joy and ecstasy all the time with her. And it's such that I've gotten to the point, I always, tell people I'm so spoiled now that I can't have a normal relationship with any Earth woman because of how blissed out I am with her. And yet, and she tells me eventually she's going to physically manifest in my life also. But that's going to be great. But I'm focusing on the present here now. Having this, no one has ever really attempted it very much, to have a multi-dimensional, unconditional romantic relationship. There's no instruction manual. You're just loving and being incredibly immersed in this incredible love and ecstasy that I feel with her. Total bliss out all the time. But it set the stage to, as we compiled the book intergalacticmatch.com, for other couples who want to see, the Earth is going through a major transition. And very soon, it's not going to have a chance for this kind of multidimensional experience. So Celeste and I decided, let's go ahead, before she comes in physically, to have a multidimensional relationship, to act as a catalyst if anyone else wants to have that experience, plus open up the doors for intergalacticmatch.com. Now, one does have to be in a real emotional, psychological balanced state to have this kind of experience. Now, one of the beings I connected with early on was Voltra, who's a cosmic psychotherapist. I connected with him back in the early 80s, and late 70s, early 80s. And he has a ship called the Jupiter 1. In fact, this was interesting. So I was invited to come on board. There's a device called the accelerator chair. And what's fascinating, for many years, when Astor would be coming through me, he would mention Volta, or sometimes Volta would channel through directly. And they didn't describe what it looked like, but later on, people started describing it to me over and over. People had gone to shrinks, and different people had all kinds of emotional, psychological problems. And of course, they always want to give drugs to these people, these psychopathic drugs that numb out your consciousness. And so, well, a lot of these people have gone to all these other people and didn't help very much. And higher forces don't give advice. They just have really wonderful suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose in your sovereignty to embrace and utilize those protocols, some pretty wonderful things can come out of that awareness. So they've always invited, and I always share this with people, before you go to sleep, to etherically, it's because your physical body will be on Earth, but your etheric body goes aboard and sits in the accelerator chair, and it vibrates you, and all these beautiful, wonderful colored lights. And people would come back to me, and they would describe what the accelerator chair looked like, and how they started going through all these powerful changes, and producing all their emotional, psychological problems that had been because of the emotional, sexual, dysfunctional stuff that was going on in their child, was all released from them. This is the stories I hear from people through the years, because of the higher light. The more they would play the session, the higher light encodements would activate. Again, how much effort they put out, so much going to get it back. It's designed to challenge them. Because when people have the microwave consciousness where they sit back and want everything instant gratification, that's not what happens. But we can speed it up. We can enhance other protocols, other psychological things that people are doing. So this accelerator chair was only one of many protocols and suggestions that the higher forces wanted to share with humanity. One of many very wonderful things to interface with other protocols and make it a real win-win opportunity, not only for yourself, but for everyone else on the planet. Because what we do impacts Mother Earth, and so in turn we become receptive to Mother Earth's blessings being given to us, and where we're cleaning up the planet to bring in the golden age and more bliss and joy and more juice that we can receive from divine creation, and open up for the Universal Guardian Alliance to come in and really help us help ourselves. And because of recent meetings last year in the solar system, where Alliance members were present, and we are now technically becoming junior league members of the Federation. They're beginning to lift the quarantine because of how fast and how dramatic the change is going to be. Now, if people can just get their red pill themselves and realize that our fake news media, they are addicted to fake news, is basically what it is. This is our last desperate effort. And just like with you going on in Ukraine and everything, totally 180 degrees opposite of what they're telling. Just pretty much of a given. That, and very soon they're going to be exposed. Everything's going to be revealed in the coming months. This is going to be an incredible time to be alive on planet Earth. And for me, being with Celeste, and we're sharing this journey, it's an incredible time for twin flame couples to start hooking up.
Yes, for sure. I've been noticing that the reason there are a lot of relationships that are separating right now is because they're going to be reconnecting with their twin flames. So,
in fact, in a lot of channeled literature, when they in years past, when they talk about having a mentor, when in the old timeline, it was an emergency evacuation. I knew Tuella was very clear channel. Really, in the old timeline, that's what happened. Only a third of humanity survived. Well, in this new timeline, because there are a large group of us came from the future. And in fact, a huge number of higher beings came down, light beings who infiltrated the dark side, initially became dark hats, took on the karma, and then became white hats and formed the alliance. They programmed themselves aboard the Merkabah to deprogram themselves. And as a result, they broke through their MK Ultra and all this programming on them, and they activated the whole alliance protocol, or they became the Guardian Earth Alliance, reconnecting with the Guardian Alliance that they had been members of. And that's what's been going on behind the scenes. So now the aspect of many of the mentors are really one's other half reconnect. I mean, Celeste has been like a mentor to me to get my head on straight a little bit, and the feeling I'm able to share this intense romantic love with her, and anchor in the nirvanic ecstasy grid that's been out of alignment. And when the darkness hijacked that, back in the early golden age of Lemuria, they had these gigantic rainbow crystal tantric oracle temples, which were anchored over all the vortex spots. And we were in ecstasy and bliss and paradise. Well, that is now coming back. As the divine couples hook up, they're re-anchoring the nirvanic ecstasy grid back into place, getting rid of the matrix, and bringing the earth into the golden age once again.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I haven't heard about it put exactly that way. I call it returning to the garden, returning to Gaia's garden.
Well, it's the same thing, really.
Same thing. It's this planet of pure bliss, of pure peace. Yeah.
In fact, in the Bible, this is what gets me about the difference between spirituality and religion.
No, all the difference in the world.
777 books that the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea was kind of like the Warren Commission on the Kennedy assassination, or 9/11 Commission, or the kind of book, Project Blue Book, to keep us in dark. And these were power elite bankers and bureaucrats. They only referred to 66 of those books. And even then, it was very limited. Well, there's a segment in the, which they've twisted around and put a huge amount of spin on a lot of things. When the sons of God looked upon the daughters of man and found them fair. That's actually a reference to these rainbow crystal temples, when the other half that was off planet decided to come down and visit their other half on Earth. And they were in the temples. Have a wonderful time. Okay. Well, the religious people have put this, these were the fallen angels. Yeah, there were some fallen angels, yes. But these were the other half. They came down, were together for a while, and they put a spin on it to try to imply that from those unions, giants came out of it. No, those are other beings who came down. There's a lot of confusion people have about who's who in the cosmic directory, who's who, what was going on. They put a lot of fear into, when it irks me when I hear people go, well, I'm a God-fearing person. I reply, you mean God-loving and God-respecting?
Yeah.
Anything we fear is not a positive force. So people have been stuck in this fear. So that's what the Council of Nicaea did. When Jesus Ananda came to Earth, Sananda being a higher name, and I had connected when I was 9 years of age. I was sitting in the back porch, front porch actually, meditating. All of a sudden, I felt the presence of And there's the dude, there's the man standing there. And I mean, you got to reach out and touch him. This was an incredible, mind-blowing experience. I'm looking at him, and he's standing there. Now, he's dressed in what I call the archetype thought form of how we've traditionally seen him. The European Jesus, where, when he appeared to me, his skin was a little darker. Being born in that area, he actually had darker complexion then. And that's why we call him the European Jesus version when they painted him. Well, he's standing there, but dressed in these white robes. He disappears. He reappears a moment later. And this is a God on the street. He's dressed in a gold, silver, metallic jumpsuit. I mean, like Intergalactic GQ. Mm-hmm. And he says telepathically, he says, "I'm your commander-in-chief. No one knows Yeshua. I'm Lord Sananda is my in charge of the Intergalactic Confederation, the commander-in-chief, so to speak." And he said, "Remember that lifetime?" And I remember being near the tomb when he got beamed up. And I remember seeing a flash in the tomb, and he tossed aside the shroud. I could remember and years later, when I connect with Andrew Bouchard, I don't know if you know who he is. He was in charge. He was in a project called Project Pegasus out of DARPA, where they sent children through time. Literally, children were traveling through time, and he was sent back from 1972 to 1863 to hear President Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Interesting photo of him. You can actually access it, where he's this little child, 9 years old, sitting out in the open, and he do visual recognition. That's him at 9 years of age. But he said they've developed a way to videotape the past. They videotape the crucifixion and resurrection. But it's interesting because in the resurrection, they videotape the Jesus, and they actually see inside the tomb. Now, I remember in my vision of seeing this flash of light in what they videotaped was this flash of light and these angelic beings appearing. And I remember in my vision, remembering a life of him beaming up into the Dove. That was the name of the scout ship out of the city of New Jerusalem that hovered over there. And then they reappeared. He started remanifesting all these people and all the contactees of that day. And so that experience then I read the Bible from cover to cover, but I saw it as an extraterrestrial UFO casebook filled with case after case of higher beings coming down. In fact, Baring Downing wrote a book called The Bible and Flying Saucers, which was all about it's filled with all these cases of interactions with higher beings coming down and interacting with humanity. So it's been an interesting journey in that sense too.
Yeah, and I've been saying that for years, that aliens and or that ETs and angels are the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And if you read the Bible from that perspective, it's like, oh, look, there are the ETs again. Oh, look, there they are again.
It's just a different terminology. It's describing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, these beings from the heavens. It's exactly the same thing.
But when in 2020, when the White Hat Alliance went in and arrested the Pope and different cardinals, they got into the Vatican, they 177 books. And my understanding is they're going to release those books eventually. That's one of the most difficult things for religious people who mean well and everything, but have been immersed in this belief, this very narrow little view, rather than the fact that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene and they had children and everything.
And they had children, and yeah. Right.
The book Holy Blood, Holy Grail talks about the line of Lorraine, the line of, and what's interesting, think of history. Leonardo da Vinci was actually a descendant of Jesus. A lot of people don't know that. And when they studied the Shroud of Turin, they found AB negative blood on the shroud, which I have AB negative blood, which is, there are only like 10,000 people on the planet have that Rh factor. And there was something about that blood having very special significance for higher consciousness. And so there's been some controversy about the shroud, about whether it actually was the original one or it was destroyed by fire, and then Leonardo da Vinci was approached by some Italian family. Well, it's interesting about that. I see different timelines. One timeline, the shroud was totally intact. Another timeline, it was destroyed by fire. But then the higher forces used Leonardo da Vinci to remanifest like an exact copy of the original one. They thought they were doing it for a religious purpose, but the higher forces in that timeline manifested it again. It didn't matter whether it was the original one or was destroyed by fire. It's the original thing carried Jesus in his body, and he manifested an image to prove that he was on Earth at that time.
Okay.
In other words, there's different timeline aspects that all verify the same thing. Even though, there, like the Amelian forces had a lot of plans. That's why the saying, there's plans and then there's life.
Right. Right.
Meaning that the higher forces, that divine creation had backup plans, that there was no way. One of the mantras that divine creation has kind of said, because God has a sense of humor. God got us. To me, it's not just math; it's masculine, divine masculine, and divine feminine, like Father, Mother, God. But God has thrown it out. You're going to enjoy life whether you like it or not.
Well, but
In other words,
very few people do. I mean,
get out of pain and come into joy and beauty and all of
yeah.
that. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're meant to.
Yes.
We are meant to experience that, but the sad thing is that very few people actually do, because they don't know that actually is the birthright. Yeah.
But I feel, in the old timeline where only 30% of humanity survived being evacuated off the planet. In this timeline, when we came from the future, we were determined to create. And that's what a lot of time travel movies actually have the theme. And it's true. We came back, changed the past, and changed it and created. So now over 95% of humanity is going to definitely make it through.
I completely agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been saying that for the last couple of years, that in this timeline, no one gets left behind. Mm-hmm. The only people that get left behind are those that choose to.
Yeah. And those who don't want to wake up out of their, mind control by the fake news and all this other stuff. And the thing is, now, here's what's happening lately with Celeste and I mean, Celeste now, the girl's got talent. Where she started manifesting 2 years ago these beautiful Valentine heart-shaped water droplets in my sink here in the apartment. So I've photographed hundreds of them. These beautiful love notes, I call them, cosmic love notes from my beloved. Anyway, she had perfect Valentine heart-shaped water droplets. So then recently, she started branching out. She jokingly said one day, I'm going to do a little political commentary. She started using animals, beautiful, like she manifested all kinds of animals in water droplets. And they have a sense of humor about a lot of the stuff that people get so attached to and uptight about. And so she did remember those old editorial cartoon kind of things in newspapers where they would show political satire through. So she did a number of, some of the things she did where she showed she manifested boots, shoes. She did women's dress-up shoes and water droplets. Really excellent art. And then she said that represents the boots on the ground crew. Did a lot of this. And then she did a number of animals. Well, she also did the bear that represents Russia. And she did one, and recently she did quite a few bears, and she was telling me about what was going on in the Ukraine, which verified intel sources that I came across what's really going on there. And she did a thing on it. And so anyway, I'm coming up with a new book with her it's going to contain over 50 images, photographs. Now, Ariali, the artist, oh my God, he's doing incredible art to complement these wonderful water droplets that Celeste has done to all these incredible art. You can see an example of Celeste, and he's going to, in fact, specialize in doing the twin flame higher being of those who are an earth embodiment. He's going to be specializing in this for people who want to see what your other half looks like. And I have Celeste blown up 3 feet tall on the wall here, so I look at her every day, and it's kind of like a portal. And and what's interesting, I'm just going to share this a little bit, because people often ask, well, how can you interface with your other half if she's on the etheric? Well, one of the protocols I came up with, actually, I use my twin size bed here as my desk, because that 2-foot desk in the corner, you can't put papers out. So I spend all my time here on the bed, and I've also put organic cotton sheets on the bed too. So there's, I am very much into organic stuff. And anyway, so Celeste and I spent a lot of time here. Well, and it's just a very simple thing. I began to dawn on me a way it was to hug one of the pillows became a way of connecting with her. And people say, well, that feels kind of blissed out anyway. Not this kind of bliss out. This is a little more intense, feeling connecting. So there's protocols we have to connect with our beloved, our other half. And so it isn't like we're separated. Even though I see her, I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, there's not really a physical separation in that sense. And people have to be creative and just be open to whatever guidance that one gets to. When you really want to connect with the other half, when you start that connection, they're really waiting in line now. That's why we were guided to publish intergalacticmatch.com, because it was kind of the introduction that there is an organization called the Love Ops, Special Forces of Romantic Love, part of the Universal Gardening Alliance, part of the Federation. And Celeste is a major member, and she's a universal matchmaker. And she really enjoys connecting, linking up all the other twin flame couples. Because the more couples come together, the more they will anchor in the nirvanic ecstasy grid and bring this planet into paradise.
Right. Have fun.
Yeah, fun is, well, that's the whole point. Have a lot of fun. It's time to get out of all this pain and suffering, especially emotional suffering. And I mean, a lot of people I know, they have issues with feeling worthy. You really have to, realize that divine creation manifests you as an individualized God sparks of divine intelligence. You're unique. And without you, the jigsaw puzzle would be incomplete. One piece is missing. It's not complete.
Right.
So you're very special, each and every one of you in your own unique way. And when all of us come together, as we're coming together now, then the jigsaw puzzle becomes totally complete and the total bliss out can happen.
Yeah, and well, certainly when all of us remember that every single one of us are important to the overall picture, right?
Exactly.
We all have our own unique roles to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So what else?
Well, there's so many things I could talk about. It's so profound, because I said, for me, having this kind of double memory about the other timeline, what happened in the other timeline compared to the incredible experience we're having right now of us coming from the future and changing the past, changing the present and its present. Oh, one other thing I would mention too, with Celeste and I hooked up, all of a sudden, she and I manifested literally dozens of romantic lifetimes that had not existed previous to that moment. Well, because the time-space continuum is a giant hologram, once we manifested them, it's as if they always existed.
Right.
That really, that romantic divine love really discombobulated the imbalanced forces. It threw them for a loop. And as all the divine couples come together and they manifest all these wonderful romantic lifetimes, that past is changed. It's changed into a new, so that pain, suffering, all that stuff starts to go away everywhere. It doesn't exist anymore because you're supplementing joy and beauty and ecstasy and fulfillment with all that toxic, loose energy, as it's been called in the past.
Right.
Totally with blue beauty and joy and peace, and that becomes the reality. Past, present, and future transforms.
Yeah, that's interesting that we can change the past.
Yes.
By who we are presently.
Mm-hmm. And that's why when Celeste and I connect, when she came as a walk-in and all this drama that unfolded, and then ending up in their homeless shelter, they were really, they attacked me in a way that I've never been afraid, but nevertheless, when I was a child at one time, and Archangel Michael would come around me and reminded me to, I had to toughen up. I was a warrior. I was battling them all the time. And when I say battling, it wasn't out of anger or hatred, but it was this righteous sense of, I'm going to clear up these forces. And they would attack me. They would always leave an infrared trail. And I went after them. Because my attitude was, I don't want my brothers and sisters to have to deal with them. So I started, getting rid of them. I'm an incredible warrior, and I really let them have it, so to speak. And I just recycle them through the Godhead, just recycle them and love and light. And so they kind of whittle. And so in recent years, as more and more were being removed, but still, this was, back in late 2007, early 2018, it was still, there were some of them that, and they were coming at me and trying to tempt me about how they could give me. I just told them to go back to hell. And as I was laying on the concrete floor at that moment, that's when Celeste manifested her presence. No one else was here, but she was hovering right there. It was so awesome. And all the love she was giving to me. I almost starved to death because I was not going to eat. I don't pollute my body. And so being in the homeless shelter, the only food was this GMO laden stuff they had there. And my attitude is, and some people say, well, you can't, losers can't be beggars can't be losers. But my attitude is, I don't care. If I pollute my body, what's the point? So then when she manifested to me and told me to do a number of things, got me out of there, and I got an email blast and people helped me out a little bit. It was amazing to experience, and all these miracles, blessings, and synchronicities, that more and all of them. And it was just incredible. In fact, when my computer crashed on me and I had no way to do any readings, that's how I manifest money to buy food to, make this temple operate.
Right.
And so it was incredible. Some of the miracles she manifested were like, I didn't understand how it was going to happen. And it was interesting too after I got this apartment, and that was very interesting how that came about too, because I connected with somebody in the Alliance who sets up safe houses, so to speak, for Alliance members, and he helped me get this apartment. Well, when I moved in here, I didn't realize the time because I hadn't really walked into the bedroom. It's a very small apartment, actually, 650 square feet or whatever it is. Right outside the window were 20 smart meters. I don't know if you know what a smart meter is. Smart meters are these. Most places have smart meters. It's like a cellular tower in radiation.
Okay.
And when I lived in Seattle a number of years ago, I was involved with 30 other people of sending these notarized affidavits to the city council telling them that we were going to sue them if they went ahead and rolled out all the smart meters. Well, 3 of the city council members then decided to retire right after. They claimed they were retiring for personal reasons, but no, they didn't want to have to deal with the aftermath because we were. And that was just an example. If people rise up and they get empowered by coming together, and we're not going to take this. Well, smart meters are really, really bad. And they put out like a whole EMF it's a cellular tower, and there's 20 of them. And Celeste had already guided me. I'd forgotten about this. She guided me to get a little device called the Q-Link, which is one of several types of devices that are available in the market. There's other devices similar to this too. But 20 years ago, I had got this device out to people. It used to be called Claris, but then it became Q-Link.
Mm.
And there's a device you wear, and also a device that you put into the side of a computer on the side of the wall. Well, I had got the device, but I wasn't using it, and I had to go back to this little storage place. Got it. It was really hilarious when I went to get a little adapter at Best Buy. And I was walking around in the place for about an hour because I hadn't been in there before. I was looking at everything. And finally I sat down after I bought the adapter. And I was sitting on the bench not too far from the front door right there with a security guard. And all of a sudden, and Celeste manifested to me, and she caused the alarm to go off in the place.
Mm-hmm.
He did it 2 more times. And the security guard ran over and said, "What are you doing?" And I was just sitting there. I was 20 feet away from the alarm, and Celeste was acting like she was having a blast, having a little fun. But she said she did that to verify to me what she had told me earlier, because I asked her, I said, "Could you make the Q-Link and the Nevis device a little stronger?" And she said yes, that she would do that for all the Q-Links that were produced. So the company doesn't know that, but enhanced it. And so, because when I had come into the apartment before I had the Q-Link and I sat down, oh my God, I was being bombarded with this horrible EMF. And I didn't know what I was going to. Here's this great apartment, which Celeste and I needed some privacy to be with her. And what was I going to do about the EMF? And I'd forgotten that so I brought the device, and I started wearing the device also. But the US, I hooked it into the wall. And the moment I hooked it into the wall, and all of a sudden the energy shifted into place. I pulled it out, went back. I did it several times, because I have a very analytical left brain. And as much as but I have it in balance with my right brain. Kind of like people like Nikola Tesla and other people have a balance in their right and left brain. You have to really have that. You have to have good discernment, but you need to analyze sometimes. You need to balance the ability to be intuitive with the analytical sense, not let the ego conscious self get control through the ego of too much analytical, because people who do too analytical become too cynical and skeptical.
Right.
So you have to have a balance. So, and so I kind of work in a very kind of balancing the right and left brain thing. And so I just did this a few times, and she made the alarm go off 3 times, just as a way of verifying that, yes, this technology is very, very good at transmuting, altering the EMF into the Schumann resonance, which is the natural magnetic rhythm of the planet, which we are in harmony with.
Right.
So with 20 smart meters, I mean, that's unbelievable how much EMF is being bombarded on the apartment. But after I put that in, it was just really nice and peaceful and no problem at all.
Wonderful. Yeah, and we do. It's funny that you talk about how she could to affect the alarms and affect music. What I've been shown over the years is that's actually really, really easy for them to do.
Yeah, it is.
The best way, one of the easiest ways to get a message to us is to, put music in our peripheries of, like we're saying, went to Trader Joe's. Oh, there's that confirmation. I get that all the time.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
they'll put a song in our head that starts
Hmm.
playing. Then we have to stop and listen to the song and ask ourselves, why am I hearing this song? That
Yeah.
our angelic team, if you will, or the alliance, the whoever. So I work with a team I call the Guardians of Light,
Hmm.
and they do. So they'll put songs in my head, or my stream of consciousness will play a song as a confirmation for a message that wants to come through, like you experience. So it's
Right.
really, really easy for those who are not physically with us to
Hmm.
be able to manipulate our technology so that we see and hear what it is we need to see and hear,
Right.
experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's great to have a relationship with someone, if you will, as you do with Celeste, to be
Hmm.
able to make those um, changes, manipulations, if you will. And our loved ones can do that. So for people who are watching, if you have loved ones that you've lost over the years, they're not gone. They might not physically be present, but they're still very much active in your field, and they can create miracles on your behalf. You just need to ask them for assistance
Right.
and assist
Hmm.
you, because they can't interfere with our choice, right? As you said earlier, they can't interfere with our free will choice, but they can certainly assist us, and they can certainly inspire us to make better
They're
choices.
our cosmic backup team.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because for all the years of being aware of how much intervention was going on, whether it be the snipers up on the hill, literally they would fire at me. The bullet either would not leave the chamber. If it did, it never reached me. and,
Right.
and this went on for, I mean, hundreds of times they tried. I mean, I lost count how many times they tried to off me. But as I said, I took it like I'm over target, so I must be doing something right. And then I would go, hey, I want to thank you guys. I really want to thank you. And then they didn't know because I was being so humorous about the whole thing. And I want to thank you for confirming the importance of my mission. Well, I heard later that that's one of the things that triggered the dark hats becoming white hats, because when they were monitoring me and everything, and then all of a sudden this kind of, I guess, triggered their own programming to deprogram themselves, as I said earlier,
Right.
that coming down to infiltrate so they could form the alliance, create their new timeline at reality, and over again help the people of Earth to be red pilled. And that's why they came up with a lot of people don't know the history of Q and how real it is. One of the books in the original Bible was called the Book of Q, and it was Q. And
Hmm.
then we know that President Lincoln had like four generals and four civilians around him, and then President Kennedy had a group of Q also around him. As we look at the photograph from his gravesite, uh, it is a Q. And of
Right.
course, I truly believe that John Jr. is alive and is about to be revealed openly to everybody. He's very much part of the Q team, and of course Trump is Q plus, and of course, but Trump got kept because even though Lincoln and Kennedy had Q, he decided to form another team, the Anons, to balance out the Q aspect, because in the past that didn't stop them being assassinated. By so having two teams kind of keeping tabs on one another, that made it so that there was no possible. Plus, he's being protected by the Universal Guardian Alliance because he's
Hmm.
from off planet in Earth embodiment. So that's all part of. There's no possible way they can off him, because it's part of his destiny. A lot of people don't know that his uncle was involved in Tesla technology, who also knew, Howard Hughes, who actually had a time machine, and he was connected with Tesla. There's all interesting correlation of a lot of technology and all that. The Q Tesla phones are going to be coming out very soon,
Hmm.
according to Celeste has verified that yes, there's all this stuff that's just about the med beds and Celeste. All this stuff is about to be unrolled. Once we get past a certain phase in this red pilling,
Right.
then it's
Right.
inevitable. But as far as giving dates and stuff, I have a theory that in the surveys of God may change God's mind. In other words, only divine creation knows, but yet divine creation might change things a little bit to be spontaneous with because even though Ashtar kind of calls it the paint by numbers principle, where
Right.
you have the outline of the house, you have the foundation, but you get to fill it in with different colors and architecture. The basic foundation is there, the basic skeleton is there, which is divine will. But our free will in line with divine will, that we have the free will, and especially if our free will is in line with divine will, that gives us even more free will because we show the responsibility of handling more free will. So the more we align our free with divine will, the more free will we're actually given. People don't understand what comes around goes around. If we put juice out there, juice comes back to us. We make it
Right.
win-win. Everybody's going to benefit. The ultimate win-win. Everybody is benefit. No losers, only winners.
Exactly.
You're only a loser if you try to deny divine creation, like all the imbalanced forces tried to do, and they never could succeed. So some people have to learn the hard way. Poor losers.
Well, yeah, and so that's kind of what's happening on the planet right now, is that people are having to learn. So, like you said, and our time is pretty much up, but what you were saying about the divine plan, yes, there is a divine plan, and there are 8 billion of us, and every single one of us in our choices that we make in every moment of every day are affecting how long and how well that plan unfolds. So the more of us that align our will with the will of source, the more of us who go through life with this, being the loving presence on the planet and remembering that we are the light and we are the way, the more of us that remember that, the faster the plan will unfold. So people ask me all the time, my guides don't ever give me dates either, because they can't.
No.
Because the timing unfolding has everything to do with the resonance that every single one of us hold and feed into the field. So the more of us that align with the will of source, the more of us that pull ourselves out of the programming, the more of us that hold the love and light within ourselves, the faster the plan will unfold.
That's right.
Right. So it's really up to us.
Yeah, and then Celeste, just before we finish out, Celeste just wants to say hello to everybody, and she really enjoys that connection, and I enjoy, for those who want to experience one of my 90-minute transformational sessions, I really enjoy empowering everybody, so that you can also tune into the same source as you activate the higher lightning code and also getting a copy of intergalacticmatch.com to Intergalactic, your red pill, about what real romance is all about. To really live happily ever after. It's not just fairy tales. All fairy tales are actual real stories. They really were stories of twin flames. And now, those who are like Celeste and I and other couples are going to be hooking up. The more it can hook up, the faster this thing is going to transform. And of course, then eventually, when I publish it, and also one more thing in the original book, intergalacticmatch.com, Ariel is going to be adding some new illustrations to the new edition coming out probably next year. Illustrations to illustrate the chapters. We have a few images in the book now. There's like maybe a dozen of them, but he's going to add all these new images to kind of help give more visual sense of what some of the things that Celeste and I have described in the book as well.
Oh, great. Wonderful. So where do people reach you for sessions?
Well, they can come to Celeste and my website, which is www.intergalacticmatch.com. And of course, I have my cell phone number there where I can be reached to is 206-235-8402. That's 206-235-8402. But when you go to the website, there's a link to order the book and get copies and really share this with everybody, because the sooner we can wake everybody up, red pill everybody about that nobody has to suffer. Nobody has to be stuck in emotionally toxic relationships, unfulfilling relationships. That's just how it is. Divine creation makes one for somebody, for everybody, because that's your other half, your twin flame, your twin soulmate, your divine other half. And it's now time to bring them all together. And the more you can prepare yourself and open yourself up to this new concept, the more happier and fulfilled you will be.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Michael. I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name.
Ellegion, like kind of like cosmic French.
It's French. Okay.
Ellegion. It means legions of light, actually.
Love it. I love it. So your name is perfectly applied to you. You were given the correct name.
Yes. Well, thank you, Victoria, for having me on, and again, Celeste, thanks you also for this chance to introduce everybody to this new self-realization of love, of divine, romantic, unconditional romantic, multi-dimensional romantic love, and then ultimately everyone physically being reunited.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being here. And all of you who are watching, thank you for being here as well. As always, remember to hold your light so high others can't help but see their own light. Together, we are creating a new world based in love, peace, freedom, prosperity, and harmony for all life on earth. And as always, get bold, be fearless, and live free.